Welcome back to the Drive-In Asylum double feature, and I hope you've had the opportunity to let the majesty of Invasion of the Bee Girls wash over you, because look what it did to Sam Panico, who has just returned to the
Hello,
program.
Bill. Hello.
If your eyes are all black, I'm just going to faint right now.
They're fine.
Thank God.
Yeah, they're fine. I'm not the Mongolian maniac. I have my full eyes. I'm back. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello,
Man, I
welcome
love that
back.
movie. What a movie. Everything's
Love it.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I agree that Susan Harris is the true protagonist of Invasion of the Bee Girls, and it can only be viewed as a tragedy. That's my input.
Go on. Explore this tragedy.
You know, watching it again, you know, that ending, it's so anticlimactic. You know, I wish that it had been bigger, or they tried a little harder. But wasn't it a great? I think it's a great movie. I think Anitra's, on point, and it's a smart film from that genre. So I'm happy that we could all watch it.
I want more people to use balling as much as possible because I've been saying it since I watched the Pink Angels trailer so many times where they're like, "Why are you going to San Francisco?" And he goes, "To ball, baby." And I've said it ever since then. This movie repeats it ad nauseum, and I love it. So I love the technology in this movie. I love the fashion. I love the paintings on the walls. I love the music. I love computers that fill whole airplane hangars to do small calculations. I need punch cards instead of typing. All this movie has everything, and the music is appropriately bouncy in the beginning, leading us into, my favorite scene in the whole movie is when that young couple's making out, and she goes, "Oh, you're getting a little randy really quick," or whatever, and it's just a dead man's hand that's gone up her skirt. This movie's got it all.
She didn't have a skirt on. She was in her panties.
Yeah, he's like, we didn't get any necrophobia into this movie yet. Here it is. Let's get it in.
She was full on Courtney Love down there, like a pair of panties.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie actually, now we can talk about all the spoilery stuff. And of course, Susan Harris is the mad scientist of this movie. I understand. She's the villain of the film. She has to die. But couldn't they have given her a more spectacular death scene? Because she just sort of like faints.
Yes, I agree. And the hero comes in, and all he has to do is shoot at the machinery, and then it's all chaos and it's over, and that's disappointing. But that's not really what I guess the movie is about.
To paraphrase Charles Bronson in 10 to Midnight, the gun is his penis.
Yeah, she was. She definitely had. And Bradley, you said earlier that this was not a feminist film, although Dr. Harris is a feminist because she's interested in female empowerment. She's taken it to the nth degree, but she's more Valerie Solanas than Naomi Wolf. She's definitely got a Valerie Solanas attitude.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, you could totally argue that it is a feminist film. I mean, especially compared to a lot of the similar films that were released in that era. But then there are the more lurid aspects that are one of the reasons that I love it so much, because it's just so strange, and even when the women get weird, they're still kind of empowered, because there's this juxtaposition of them with these terrible men, who are cheating on their wives and are terrible people. And then when the women are together, there are few scenes together, they're all very soft, and they have a different kind of relationship. It's a sensuous relationship, but it's it's different.
Very
You know?
seductive.
Right.
It's like Stephanie Rothman movies where you're like, yes, this is female empowering, but everybody's naked. Like it's like you have to kind of like
Right.
it's
They
still
still have to do the
exploitation.
thing. They have to check the
Yeah.
boxes, you know?
Yeah, it still has to be
So-
exploitation, but you
Right.
can sneak in some stuff into the boxes when possible.
They balanced that out with some caricatures of the men in this movie because they're just sort of depicted as these creatures that are helpless against their own biology, and they're gonna
Right.
like the guy. I loved his suspenders, by the way. The Union guy who was kind of like Archie Bunker-esque in that town hall meeting where he's screaming like, the little pleasure I get from screwing my old lady. No one was going to take that from him.
Hey, Bill, I wear suspenders for the first time at a wedding this
Right.
week, and it is very freeing. So I
Mhm.
get it now. Like I felt like my brother said, "What's it like?" And I said, "It's like floating. It's a really
Yeah.
nice. It's a very beltless feeling. Yet you're getting the feeling of a belt. I get it now."
I never went back. I
Yeah.
tried a pair on, and I'm like, I'm just going to see what this is like. And I've worn them every single day since.
Yeah, I could see it. If I didn't wear shorts every day, no matter what, I would. Maybe suspenders and shorts are what's next for me. It'll be a very Mork from Work kind of thing that I'll be bringing to the table.
Yeah,
that
Steve,
town
that
hall
felt
was-
very much like a COVID era. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'd mentioned that in the last segment. We were talking about that correlation. Yeah. Where the men are just, it's a similar situation. The men are just, they're going to go ahead and have sex, and they're not going to get it.
Sex
They're not
away
going to
from
die.
us, even if we die. It's an AIDS analogy 8 years before it's time.
The sheriff wasn't gay. The guy who was gay was one of the other scientists.
One of the doctors, right? And he was run over by a car because he wasn't attracted to the B girls, so they had to
It
run
wasn't
him
going to
over with the
work.
car.
It
which
wasn't
is
going
really
to work
fun.
on him.
No. But Dr. Harris had to get rid of him as well. So yeah, Nora, I agree. I completely agree. There are parallels.
When he got hit by the car,
Well,
I'm
sad.
only used to when a car hits a car from my Halloween experience that everything explodes and
They
he just
have
got
to
crushed.
blow up.
Right? Like, shouldn't he
Generally,
just
in
blown
an
up?
exploitation movie, they're going to blow up. Yeah.
Yeah. That I was like, what? The first car accident I was in, I instantly thought of Halloween 2, and I said, I got to get out of this car, and I ran and dove into a snowbank, and 5 minutes later, I was still in the snowbank, and the car had not exploded. So that's not how it works.
I don't know whether you should be glad about that or not.
Mm-hmm. It's disappointing either way.
Yeah, Mike, the part where Anitra sweetens her coffee. I'm right there with you. She has a lot of little great moments, but yeah.
She was, it's so casual. I love how the first time you see her, she's not even addressed in the film. She's just in the background.
Yeah, she's in the far left of frame of Victoria Vetri. Yeah, it's very subtle. Some of the shots are really good, I mean, looking at it in the original aspect ratio, some of the shots are really great. And that stunning one of her in the cafe or the lounge or whatever, where she's got her legs crossed and she orders that drink. That's a great shot. That's a superstar shot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just so, I want to hang out in that place where they were. It's sort of like the world's nicest airport lounge cocktail bar. I think it looks like a fabulous place to relax, and they had those big 70s style couches just to crash on. It's like a Studio 54 coked out haven.
Yeah.
Victoria Vitri was an interesting person. She was we were talking about it in the break. She was in Rosemary's Baby.
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if everybody recognized her from that film, but she was the young woman who was living with the Castevets before they met Rosemary, and Rosemary runs into her in the laundry room and has a nice conversation with her, and then like later that night or the next day she's dead on the sidewalk. So they found a better baby vessel for their satanic conspiracy. But
Right.
she also, when she was making that movie, she got to be good friends with Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski's wife, and they became very close. And Victoria said that the night that Sharon and her group of friends died at the hands of the Manson family, they had invited her over too, but she was ill and she didn't go. So she was almost there. A very frightening prospect.
Mm.
That's great. That's a great story.
Well, it happens to be true. And I wonder,
Darren, Darren, it was Stacy, the film that I mentioned in the last segment about Anitra not wanting to talk about. Andy Sedaris.
Yeah, remade as Malibu Express. It's the same movie, just a gender swapped version.
Okay.
Yeah, they. I
haven't seen it.
You haven't seen Malibu Express? Oh man, you gotta watch it.
Yeah,
I think you would like. Have you seen Hard Ticket to Hawaii?
Hard Ticket to Hawaii I saw in a theater, and I loved that movie because there was something in that for me. I don't know. I don't remember why we went to see that movie. It was a midnight movie, but the killer snake, it put it over the top. It's like, oh, okay, there's all this stuff, and then this, okay. So we stayed, and
I mean, Darby Hinton.
It's a very specific kind of filmmaking. His movies.
Yeah. And he's the guy. He's the guy that invented cheerleaders on Monday Night Football, which is pretty amazing. The so-called honey shot of seeing cheerleaders watching the game. That's Andy Sedaris.
Okay.
Yeah. So it shows up in his movies. Repeat, but the thing that I love about his movies are the women in his movies have more agency. None of the men can shoot guns. They're all screw up constantly, and the women have to save them in every one of his movies. It's pretty wild. Which is, it's like, again, there's female empowerment in between all the nudity in hot tub scenes.
Right.
There's a hot tub scene, and every movie ends with them like it's like the couch at the end of a sitcom when everybody kind of comes together to learn a lesson. Everybody's in a hot tub learning the lesson at the end of every Andy Sedaris movie. It's awesome. But Malibu Express is really good. It's got Sybil Danning in it and Darby Hinton. Pretty good.
Okay. Well, that's a good cast.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. And he's a complete moron in it. He's pretty great. Darby Hinton's really great in it. So, but I just read that quote about getting rid of black magic. That spam was for. Probably that might be appropriate for the second movie. Just saying.
Yeah,
I missed that.
Thank you for that translation, Dan. I think Fred thought you were saying that for real. I don't think he understood that was a translation.
Yeah.
Of that bizarre rant that we got in our. We don't get any spam here. We're pretty lucky.
So, yeah,
I've never seen any.
We had the one that had all the different word symbols the one time.
Yeah.
Once
in a while, one of those bots will come up and post like 7 comments in a row. It's like sexy ladies, and then there's a tiny URL, but that hasn't happened in a long time.
Well, let's see.
Now I went and jinxed it.
You've opened the door to black magic and children's happiness. So, which could be the same thing.
I think, Manhattan Baby proves that black magic is children's happiness.
It is. I just looked at that through my 21st century films that I went through this week. Man, 21st century put out so many movies with wild titles that I'm like, what is this movie? So that was pretty fun. They released, what do you call it? Bird of the Crystal Plumage, like 11 years after it was in theaters under a different name. Like, that's crazy. It's a Phantom of Death.
Phantom of Terror.
Phantom of Terror, yeah. How? And yeah, I know it has Argento's name in it, and I know very small. There's like 8-point type. It says formerly Bird with the Crystal Plumage. That didn't get into all the ads. You know what I mean? And there are definitely people that went and were like, I saw this 11 years ago.
Bradley, there was something I wanted to ask you about B-Girls. Oh, okay. You have to pick one guy in the movie. Is it going to be William Smith, or is there another guy that you would pick from this movie?
Well, that's pretty easy. Yeah, that would be William Smith.
Okay, but if it wasn't, what if I said William Smith was off limits? What would be the next one?
Why? You know, this film is terrible people. You know, really, and intentionally, you know, awful looking, yeah, or interesting looking character actors. So I couldn't choose. But you know, if you want me to choose some of the lovely women, I mean, that's very easy. You know, they're all of the women in the cast are beautiful. And, you know, no, I cannot choose. But I bet you've got a choice. I bet you've got a couple or three.
I want to be in a sandwich with Cliff Emmett and the sheriff. But other than that, I can't think of anybody.
Yeah. So did you guys talk about Victoria Vetri going to the moon?
No, please talk about Victoria Vetri going to the moon.
Yeah.
No.
So she, you know, she was the Playmate of the Year for '68. So when Apollo 12 went to the moon, the astronauts hid a picture of her and 3 other playmates, Cynthia Myers, Reagan Wilson, and Leslie Bianchi, into the they had cuffs here, and it had their checklist for all the missions, and the guys that put together the checklist for the missions hid a picture of each of them in their thing. So when they got to the moon, they took nudes of her to the moon with them. So that they had something to look at while they were on the mission for the whole time for Apollo 12. And then she
Vince,
became
I
a B
love your
girl.
idea.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
she
that would
became
be
what?
great.
Yeah.
What she became what?
She became
a B
a
girl.
B girl after that. So was that part of their plot to infiltrate, to take away the astronauts' attention through their feminine wiles?
And Lee did not see any good-looking guys. Well, yeah, I mean, if you have to choose, you know.
Tough audience.
William Smith seems attractive. Certainly.
Yeah, he's ruggedly, you know, yeah.
He hadn't yet got the William Smith craggly voice yet in this. By Uncle Sam a couple years later, his voice in the beginning of Uncle Sam is all broken glass. Like it's really like with 10 years did something to his voice.
A lot of cigarettes.
A lot of cigarettes. But I love William Smith. He's one of my guys. Like if he shows up in a movie, I know I'm probably gonna like it just for him being in it.
He was in
Grave of the Vampyres, one of my favorite drive-in vampire movies, if that's a thing. I was trying to think of some of the vampire movies that I appreciated because it's not really a favorite subgenre of mine, especially the sensual vampire, European films. I can appreciate them, a lot of them are beautiful, if you can watch the actual, the original film and its original aspect ratio, and appreciate some of the framing or filmmaking technique. But some of them are really hard for me to get through.
Like
so
what?
This one's not. This is British, right?
Yes. Well,
this is a
no,
British
Spanish.
film. The director
British film,
is
Spanish director,
Spanish,
yeah,
right? But it's a British film, right?
Yeah.
I like the director very much. The
Jose
Symptoms,
Larraz. Yeah,
right. The Symptoms was this film that he did. I think the same year that Vampyres came out, and that's a great little sort of Bergman-esque thriller. That's Angela Pleasance, isn't it? It's very weird.
It's funny
but
because
satisfying.
he made the same movie like 4 times before Symptoms. He did Whirlpool and The House That Vanished and Emma Dark Doors, and they're all very similar. And then Symptoms is like him getting it right. It's like he like played around with it and kind of got close. And yeah, Angela Pleasance is awesome in that movie. Like she's actually really she's in a few Amicus movies and some other stuff, and she's always like super underrated. I actually just saw her in something playing a witch too. This year she was just in something. And I was like shocked.
Well, I like The House That Vanished quite a bit as well. I didn't really see any correlation, but I wasn't looking for them either.
It's always like
he's a good director.
Yeah, there's like a house in the woods, and something as bad has happened, or maybe nothing has happened, and people are kind of losing their minds. He also did Black Candles, which is really good, that Severin put out, aka Sex Rights of the Devil. It lives up to its title. And then Edge of the Axe, which is a slasher he did, which I really like. Some people think it's boring. The best part's in the first 2 minutes. There's a really cool axe attack inside a car wash that is like amazing. And it's my favorite kind of movie where the interiors are in Spain and the exteriors are in Los Angeles. So it has a very like disconnected quality that I kind of dig about it. And Deadly Manor is actually pretty good that he did. His last 3 movies were very much during the VHS era of stuff. So yeah, Rest in Pieces, Edge of the Axe, and Deadly Manor. He also did The Coming of Sin, which is really, really weird. And I don't even know if it's horror. It's just a strange movie of a woman keeps seeing a man following her, and it's kind of like this erotic Euro horror kind of thing. It's pretty wild. Yeah. Oh yeah. Chris also brings up, I forgot, Edge of the Axe also has a computer that can talk to people years before this can happen. And I love movies that like technology at once seems antiquated and futuristic somehow at the same time. So yeah, it's got a lot of that to it. It's a pretty weird movie. It's got a good ending too. But yeah, Symptoms is really, really good too, bro. I really dig that movie. I went through all of the Laraz movies this year and kind of wanted to experience all of them. And he started as a comic book artist and writer, and that's how he funded a lot of his movies. So that's what's kind of cool. And like I said, definitely like his framing and the way he sets up shots from, experience of drawing comics. It's the same thing as setting up your shots. So he really experimented a lot in comics and brings a lot of that to what he does in his films. That's kind of what I dig about his stuff. He's kind of like, I was just going to say before Chris did, he has a lot of Jess Franco-isms, but he's a way better director. So there aren't moments where you just you don't look at the sun for a minute while people talk over a shot of the sun and suddenly zoom into something out of nowhere, or, his wife wasn't in every one of his movies. These kind of the things that make me love Jess Franco. Yeah. I think Bill knows if there's a director that people make fun of, I'm like, but I love him because of this. And I get really defensive about them. So I don't have to be as defensive as Jose Laraz, because he's actually a really great director.
Well, I believe I've seen this movie before. I don't remember it. I have no memory of it. But when I watched the trailer, I was like, I think maybe. So I'm looking forward to watching it and, and talking about why, you chose this movie. Who chose it? Who chose this movie? Was it you, Sam?
It was either Bill or me.
So you both.
I knew you wanted to do it. I chose it, but I knew that you had already talked about doing this movie.
It wasn't like if we show this lesbian vampire movies. No, it wasn't like that.
Sam won't like that. Not at all.
Would Sam like a satanic vampire movie? Why? Also, yeah, David brought up Stigma, which is a really weird movie that Laraz did about a guy born that had a veil of flesh over his face before as a baby, and it's removed and gives him psychic abilities, and it's way all over the place. It's pretty good too. That's what I like. I like, maybe it's a Euro horror thing, but I like movies where I'm like, I have no idea what's happening, but I like it. And I like the headspace that they put me in, and like the kind of movie drugs feel about it. I'm not
I can do a little bit of that,
Yeah.
But ambiguity is fine. as long as you're
Yeah.
thinking about it. I
Yeah.
don't just want a lot of abstract imagery. It's difficult for me
Yeah.
to sit through a lot of that unless it's really compelling for some reason.
His films
So-
have more of a story, a narrative story. So I think you'll enjoy this. And to answer Lee,
Oh,
before we go into
I
the
love
movies,
House on Straw Hill.
yeah, I love it too.
Lee, yeah, that's a great. I have that on Blu-ray. And someone mentioned The Godsend, Angela Pleasance. I think that was the first time I saw her in The Godsend. We
Yeah.
actually saw that in a theater. What a boring. I
Godsend?
remember I
Oh,
was like 8 years
God.
old and thinking, this is so boring. Omen.
It's an early Canon. It's one of the
British
first
Omen.
Golden Globus pickups from when they took over Canon that they were
Was
kind of
it?
stuck with from the old Canon regime.
Have you watched it recently, Bradley?
I haven't.
'Cause
Not in a while. But Angela Pleasance was actually, the most memorable part of the movie for me. She was haunting. She only has like 5 minutes in the film. but-
Sometimes I go back to movies that I hated when I was that age, and I really like them now that I'm older, like Silent Scream.
Right.
That was one of the movies that I didn't like as a kid, but I love it now.
Okay.
I can appreciate it for everything that it is.
Right. Okay. I'll revisit it. If it, was released in the 70s, I'll give it a go again,
1980.
Oh, 1980. I don't know.
So Vampyres, our second feature of the night. The first place I could find it playing in the United States was in March of 1975. This came out in, I guess, Spain in 1974. It was released there, but it didn't come to the States until 75. And here it is playing in Louisville in March 75 with Sheba Baby from local hero William Girdler.
I like that.
Love Girdler.
Yeah. We
Sheba
love him
Baby
here
is the
for
only
sure.
of his movies I haven't seen.
It's good. I
Yeah.
don't like it as much as Foxy Brown or Coffee, but
It's got Austin Stoker, so that would get me to watch it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
But I like this ad layout that they have for Vampyres.
Yeah,
Especially
it's
how
very
the V is
intriguing.
the two vampire chicks. That's good. Once you get a theme going, it's best to stick with it. Here it is with Night of the Living Dead. What an awesome combination.
Wow.
Two horror classics not for the weak-hearted. That's saying a mouthful. Vampyres is pretty brutal, if I remember correctly. I've only seen it like twice, and I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember this as being a fairly violent film, and I know the climax is particularly brutal. I didn't expect it to end the way it was. In the US, it had this subtitle, Daughters of Dracula, and I guess some of the ad campaigns sort of wanted to emphasize that, as we see here.
Yeah.
So some people may just refer to this movie as Daughters of Dracula, and you can't blame them.
Were they trying to pick up on the Daughters of Darkness kind of thing too?
Possibly.
Oh, perhaps.
Here's one with some actual critical quotes, including one from Flick magazine that called it scary as hell.
Who are we to deny Flick?
I wouldn't argue with the critic from Flick ever. These ads from Albuquerque really blow my mind. I love the backgrounds. They use that dotted background on everything in Albuquerque. Louisville's
I love that.
Louisville's newspaper or movie section in the newspaper was beautiful, and so was Albuquerque's so far. I haven't found any other cities that quite measure up to them. Not even LA. LA's was had a very boring movie section. It was all very methodical.
I love everything about this ad, especially Codename Trixie.
I was wondering how long it would take you to mention that, which
Oh.
is, of course, for our viewers who may not know this, Sam, what movie is that?
The Crazies. Named
Right.
for the drug within the movie is Trixie. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Bingo. And yes, it is a lovely, lovely thing. This one I couldn't bear to cut it apart because it was just so everything in this ad.
Oh my
was just
God.
beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. How do you choose?
Where do you even begin? Another Louisville experience here.
Oh. Trip with the teacher and kiss the teacher goodbye. It's like Howard Avon.
Oh my God.
Wow. The other crazy fact that I have from this is the same guy that did the voice for Fritz the Cat was Pogo's voice in I Go Pogo, which seems like the most childish character and the most adult cartoon character. You own those voices, I guess. But man, Vampires, Count Yorgo, Lust for Vampire, and Scars of Dracula in one night. I don't know if I can handle it, you know? That's a night.
Of course, Kiss the Teacher Goodbye is what movie?
The Student Teachers?
No. It's a horror film.
Oh. I do not know.
Well, the star.
Is it Horror High?
Bradley.
Oh, wow.
Bingo.
Man.
That was Crown International's way of recycling.
That's kind of a... That's a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but there it is.
But okay.
Well, I love this hand designed ad. This looks like Steve Ditko wrote it. Wow.
Another Louisville.
That's great.
Yeah. Louisville really had it going on.
Twins of Evil and Daughters and Vampires in the same night. I mean, and Vampire Lovers, but Twins of Evil is my favorite Hammer, other than maybe, man, it is. I was going to say, it is, yeah.
This was a 3-film lesbian vampire extravaganza.
Wow. I saw Twins of Evil at the drive-in.
Yeah, it's good.
I think it's the only Hammer horror film I saw at the drive-in. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day?
Yeah.
It was re-released in the late 70s with on a double bill with a Jack the Ripper film. A British Jack the Ripper film.
Blade of the Ripper?
What?
Probably. Blade of the Ripper. Potentially.
Hands of the Ripper.
Hands of the Ripper. That's
right. Yeah. Hands of the Ripper.
Hands of the Ripper. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that was a double bill, and I don't think we stayed for Hands of the Ripper, but I remember Twins of Evil, and I remember the nudity seared into my brain.
Twin nudity, no less. Yeah.
Night of Bloody Horror. This one's from Hartford, obviously, the Hartford Drive-In. Here's some more ad copy. Critical quotes. More sex appeal per puncture than any Dracula outing on record, says Playboy.
That's great.
Yeah. We're back to Sheba Baby. Where is our next one? Oh, here's something interesting.
Oh,
wow.
From the UK.
Yeah, because these are X for the UK. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1976.
Together.
1976 is when this double played in the UK. It played London, but this is from, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, Leicester. And this is the only one I could find that had any graphics. But look at that Devil's Reign British version.
Never seen that art.
Ooh, stop me, John Travolta.
Wow. That is beautiful. Oh.
Then, this was 1979. And Armando de Osorio's film, The Lorelei's Grasp, was reissued to theaters for some reason. Well, it had a very limited, very, very limited release in the United States when it was contemporary. I think 1975. And it was titled The Swinging Monster. But and it was rated X because it's a very gruesome, the gore in it is so over the top, not very realistic, but still over the top. It was X rated, not for the sex. But here it is reappearing in American theaters in 1979, one of the golden years of horror films. It reappeared as When the Screaming Stops, and Vampyres was the co-feature with it.
Whoa.
Well, here they called it Vampire,
Yeah.
which doesn't make sense.
It's a smash co-hit though, so I mean that's what you get.
Yeah, here they got the title right anyway.
Is Captain Kidd a pirate-themed drive-in theater, Bill?
It was a pirate-themed drive-in
Oh my
theater.
God. Fucking the world was so much better at one point.
They have a nice write-up about it on cinematreasures.org.
Wow, I gotta look it up.
I don't know if many of you have gone and looked on cinematreasures.org, but you could spend an entire day there just looking at pictures from the golden era of drive-ins and really any theater. There are a lot of profiles of theaters from your own town, wherever you live, on cinematreasures.org. Highly recommended way to spend a lonely evening. Anyway,
I got totally got the yearbook pose for that one when we came back. I was like, oh, nice. Bill, I got some facts about this movie before I get into the drinks. So I'm not going to pronounce her name right, but Miriam in this movie, who was played by single-named Anukula, who is really Anukula Dejunbrinska. I'd never say that right. Anulka, yeah. But she was Playboy's Playmate of the Month for May 1973, and David Bowie connection. She was once married to Tony Sales, who was in Tin Machine, one of my favorite David Bowie spin-off bands. He played guitar with his brother in that band, Hunt Sales and Reeves Gabriels. That's a great, if you're into David Bowie.
Do you remember the promotion said Bowie is dead, Tin Machine lives?
Yeah, I love both Tin Machine albums a lot. I was so excited about them. I thought I was getting it in the ground floor or something when I was a kid, but probably wasn't. And then this is shot around Oakley Court, which Hammer used for The Brides of Dracula, The Reptile, Plague of the Zombies, The Old Dark House, the William Castle movie was shot there, Mumsy, Nanny, Sonny, and Gurley, and now The Screaming starts, and probably you'll recognize the house as Frankenfurter's home from Rocky Horror. And it's now a luxury hotel. While they shot it, there was no running water, and it was a horrible place to shoot, but today it is a beautiful luxury hotel. You can stay there. There are no lesbian vampires, as far as I know. There. Anyway, that's my facts about this movie. I just like getting a chance to say Tin Machine. It makes me happy. So let's make a drink. Why don't we, right?
Shall we?
Shall we? Let me frame my head here.
Oh, I'll give you the floor. Here you
go.
No. Oh, yes, I insist.
Anyway, the Spanish Vampire. This one's easy. You're not going to shake it. You're just going to put them in a glass here. We're starting with 1.5 ounces of vodka, brand new vodka. Nikolai vodka. Do 1.5 ounces of that. By the way, Bill, I put together my recipes for the drive-in next weekend. So,
right on.
So I'm going to be bringing out some stuff. We're going to do 1.5 ounces of that.
Stock your trunk.
Yep, pop your trunk. We're going to 0.5 ounce of Campari because we're fancy, and this is probably where the Euro horror comes in with this part of the drink. We're going to do 0.5 ounce of whiskey. This one's going to cure my common cold, probably. And then finally, 0.5 ounce of honey syrup. If you didn't make honey syrup, it's okay. You can just put some honey in it and swirl it around. But I actually boiled some honey syrup today because I'm a fancy lad in the kitchen. Anyway, there it is. And it has a pleasing blood-like color. I had to do toast this weekend at a wedding, and I had to remind myself not to say Pazuzu at the wedding. So probably not the best thing to say at a wedding, but, on the show, it's a little different. So, Pazuzu, Bradley, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for covering for me while I was beating people up.
Well, thanks for having me.
Pazuzu.
Cheers. Pazuzu.
Call us by our dream name.
Yes. I'm still recovering from getting to watch Exorcist 2 with everybody. That was one of the dream episodes of this show. I had such a blast watching.
I'm sorry I missed that.
Yeah, it was
I
pretty
love
great.
Exorcist 2.
I was going to ask you if you had anything to say about Exorcist 2, Bradley.
You were.
Well, after we brought it up, I mean,
Yeah.
I know you love it.
I do love Exorcist too. Yeah, it's yeah, that's a pretty crazy film and so wrong-headed and interesting. You know, the backstory is so interesting. The release story is so interesting. I mean, what did you guys talk about? You know, Borman was recutting the movie, you know, a week after it had been released. He was in the theater, you know, recutting reels. That's crazy. I love that story, and it, you know, it's just
when that happened,
the reasoning
Cats,
behind it was so wrong.
When that happened with Cats, when they were re-editing and sending out, I'm like, yeah, that's different. It's like a digital re-edit. Someone wasn't going and cutting the reels in theaters, like in the back room of a theater, cutting it. Like, this is a much bigger endeavor. So I do love that.
I never actually compared the actual differences between the two films myself, and I mean I'm aware of some of them, but not entirely, and I just keep asking myself, what could he have been doing to that movie in the theater? Like, what was he cutting out? What was he cutting in?
Well, I would love to know, but I don't think he wasn't cutting much in. He was taking stuff out because the audience was laughing at it and throwing stuff at the screen, you know, so he was taking things out. And the, you know, that ending, you know, where what's her name, the assistant who has been burned to a crisp, and Louise Lasser, the Louise Lasser character, is holding her, and she's clearly dead. But yes, she wakes up and she says, "I chose evil." Such a great thing. Well, he had to cut that out. You know, the audience was, you know, they thought that was hilarious. But that's been reinstated, I guess. So the longer original version, Borman's original version, was, I guess, reinstated at some point. And what's the version that you watched? Did Reagan and what's his name, Father
Richard Burton? Yeah, they walk off
right,
together
the Richard
at
Burton,
the end.
they walk. Okay.
Yeah,
That wasn't the theatrical version.
Yeah, because
They
I
cut it
guess
off
they
right
sort of
after
imply
she.
that Richard Burton dies at the end of Exorcist 2
Right.
in the
Well, it
edited
ends
version.
after she does her little dance, you know, and the
Mm-hmm.
locusts leave, and then there's a freeze frame on her. That was the
Oh,
theatrical version.
Oh,
Yeah, they lost all that footage because. So.
yeah,
It's a great
versus
story.
like 20 years from now when Cats comes out, the Vinegar Syndrome of the future puts out Cats. So like, oh, we have all this cut footage and we have all of it because it was digital. Versus, yeah, when stuff got thrown away, Like, who knows where it went?
Cats. Well,
I would say Exorcist 2 is much better than Cats, to quote the old Cats commercial. But
I loved it. It was much better than Cats.
Cats.
I'm going to see it again and
Again and again.
That's one of my favorite SNL sketches. Bradley, I've been thinking, ever since you said you were doing the show, I've been thinking about that elusive episode of Fridays that Jamie Lee Curtis did right around in her horror Scream Queen days.
Fridays.
Yeah, it was a sketch comedy show that was on Friday nights. Do you remember
No,
it at all?
I know Fridays.
Okay.
We watched Fridays. I remember her being on SNL. Was she on Fridays? I'll have to look for it.
She was on Fridays, and there was some really funny stuff in that episode. It was right around the time that I think Prom Night had just come out. So she was at the height of her Scream Queen popularity. It was in 1980 that she did this episode, and I don't know.
Okay, that's around the time where she did SNL. She was on SNL twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the second time was when Eddie Murphy was like a regular. She did it during the terrible season, after they'd fired everyone.
Yeah,
they had that terrible cast for a season. The Jean, how do you pronounce her name?
Season, yeah.
Right. The terrible season everyone wants to forget. And then she was on, I think, a couple years later when Eddie Murphy was on, right after they did Trading Places together. But I haven't
Yeah.
seen the Fridays episode. I'll have to look for it because I love
Well, if
her
you find
comedy
it,
stuff.
you have to make sure you tell me that you found it somewhere because I've been looking for it for years and haven't been able to. When it aired, I recorded it on cassette because I was so into Jamie Lee Curtis and Halloween,
Yeah, of
and
course.
I put the cassette player in front of the TV and recorded it, and I would listen to it over and over again. There was a funny sketch. It opened with a fake trailer for a movie called Halitosis. And she's like a babysitter and she's stalked by this heavy breather who has bad breath. And I remember like the climax of it was when he got into the house and she's like, stop, I have a toothbrush and I know how to use it. And then they did the opener and then they came back and it was another scene of her sitting in a living room and the phone rings and it's a heavy breather and she's like, who is this? And she hangs out. She's suddenly like these masked killers start approaching her from every edge of the set. Like one comes out of the fireplace and then one comes through the front door. Well, she stops in the middle of it and she's like, stop, stop, stop. And she stops the sketch and she's like, I can't do this horror movie stuff anymore. I hate it. And she's like, and the producer, then it goes to this handheld shot of the producer comes out and talks to her. And Mark Blankfield, who was like one of the
Right.
anchor members of Fridays, he comes out. He's like,
Yeah.
what's the matter, Jamie? Like we talked about this and she's like, I'm sorry. I can't do this horror movie stuff anymore. That's all anyone thinks about when they think of me. And nobody knows the real me. And they're like, oh, that's not true. Everybody knows who you are. And she's like, no, they don't. So he's like, fine. So like live, they take her out, they walk her outside of the studio and follow her with this handheld camera. And they walk over to this neighborhood nearby and they start knocking on people's doors and saying, like, do you know who she is? And they knock on maybe like 2 or 3 doors and they're like,
Wow,
no.
I've never seen that. Do they know who she was?
There were 2 people that maybe were not plants. And they I don't think they said they knew who she was, and she kept getting more and more despondent. And then like the last door they knock on, this old man answers. And they're like, do you know who she is? And he's like, oh yes, I know who she is. And he grabs her and pulls her inside and slams the door. And they're all like standing around looking at each other and they all start walking away and they're like, I don't know. And then you hear her scream from inside. And that's the end of the sketch.
Bill, I have
That
really
sounds
good
great.
news for you, Bill.
What? You found it?
It is on. Oh no, it's not. Oh my god. So Tubi has all the episodes of Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have that episode. It was season 3, episode 7, and that's one of the episodes that they don't have. Probably for music rights, because Shout Factory put out the Blu-ray set, and there's some episodes missing based on artists that they didn't have.
Garland Jeffries was the musical guest. If it's Garland Jeffries' fault, I'll kill him.
It just might be.
Wow, I would love to see that.
I'll look and hunt and see if I
totally
can find
missed it.
Yeah.
And I can't
I
believe I missed it. Because we did watch that show, and if I had heard she was going to be on, we would have watched it.
Fridays is the first show that I realized that I would have a different sense of pop culture than my parents, if that makes sense. I think it was like 7 or 8 when it was on. And when Diva was on, I thought Diva was the greatest fucking thing I'd ever seen. Like I was like insane. I'm like, what is this? This is great. I remember my mom being like, this is horrible. This is not music. And I was like, it's pretty great. Like I love whatever these guys are doing. I love it. So that, and especially Andy Kaufman being on it and having his flip out and getting into a fist fight with everybody. And I was like, yeah, this is great. I guess this is kind of what the stuff I like. And they just did not like it. They didn't like Friday. Fridays had too much drug humor. Not that Saturday Night Live didn't. So like anytime drug humor happened, my parents would get upset. Paradoxically, love Cheech and Chong. So, you know, I guess maybe good drug humor. I don't know.
Okay, so it was 1981.
Yeah. Another great year in horror movies was someone did a whole issue of drugs. Sell those copies.
All right, so should we get to the movie Vampyres?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
It's also on Shudder.
I guess.
Shudder, if you want to see it on there.
What were you going to say, Bradley?
I'm excited to watch it again for the first time.
Yeah, it's been a while since I saw it too.
Yeah,
So-
I don't remember it, but so this will be
Really?
fun.
Here it is. It is on Tubi. For a minute there, I panicked because I thought, oh, did we check to see if it's actually streaming online? But yes, it is. And here I just dropped the link into chat. You can't actually, it's not a hyperlink, so you're going to have to highlight it and copy, paste it into your browser to find it. Or just go to Tubi and spell vampires with a Y. Make sure you put the Y in there. Otherwise, you'll be watching a John Carpenter movie. Not that that would be the worst thing in the world.
Bill, by the way, I saw some discourse on a Facebook group this week of how do you pronounce Tubi? And someone said, I was watching a video cast and someone kept calling it Tubby. In my dreams, I think it's me. I don't know who else has called it Tubby other than me. So if I can get more people to call it Tubby than Tubi, I'll be super happy.
I think it is you. It's gotta be.
It's gotta be. Anyway,
All right,
Vampyres.
Come back after the movie. We'll have some more to talk about with Bradley Still Harding and me and Sam Panico on the Drive-In Asylum double feature.